This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good morning everyone. We're continuing Mishna Berura Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Lamed Tes Seif Aleph. Mihem hakesherim lichtov tefillin veliknois mehem. Who is authorized and kosher to write tefillin, and who could you buy from? Says the Mechaber, Seif Aleph, tefillin shekesavan eved or isha or katan. Tefillin that were written by a slave, a woman, or a minor. Afilu higia lechinuch, even if the minor reached the age of chinuch. A kusi, or a kusi. Not meaning the gersa should not be a guy, but rather a kusi. A mumar lavas gilulim, or a Jew who, regarding worshipping idols, is a mumar. A moiser la'anasin, or someone who tattles. Psulin. Why? Mishum dechsiv u kishartam u kisavtam. Kol she'enoi bikshira. Anyone who is not commanded to tie tefillin, or even if someone is commanded but he doesn't believe in it, he cannot write tefillin. Says Mishna Berura, tefillin v'adin sevator mezuzah, oyisha v'adin tumtum ba'androgenes. Likewise, if their organ is covered up, or they have both, or were masupik, tehim b'chlal safek isha. So not only can a woman not wear, but a safek woman cannot write tefillin. Oy katan. Why a katan? Says Mishna Berura, v'kivan the alfina mikra. Since the source that you have to be included in kishira to do ksiva is learned out of a pasuk, b'inan shei dafka gadol mamish. You need mamish gadol. Meaning, the Dirshu explains that regarding dinim that are only midrabanan, you don't need a gadol b'vadai. You could rely on chazaka derava. That at 13 years old you have 2 hairs. But by Dairaisa we don't rely on chazaka. Why not? He brings from the Pri Megadim, because there's a miyud hamatzoi that are not maybe shtei saros, even when they reach 13. Therefore the Chachamim were machmer to be choishesh for the miyud when it comes to a dairaisa. So you need a gadol mamish. Dahainu shehevi shtei saros acher shuben yud gimel shana. Aval safek lanum hevi shtei saros. If we're in doubt whether he brought 2 hairs, pasal lichtov, he cannot write tefillin. Im loishin esmale zekanoi. Unless his beard has come in full. Dahainu sheyesh riboy seir bezekanoi avshem ketanim oid. That is, the majority of his beard has come in. Doesn't mean he has a beard down to the floor. It means hair is starting to grow on the majority of his face. Fine. Oish avruroiv shenoisav, or he's already, most of his years of life have gone by. We then assume that he is already a gadol. Or we know that he's a sris, he's impotent, he's in other words, that the reason why he doesn't have simane gadlos is because he will never develop them. You should scream at soifrim that allow children to write tefillin. So you thought that when people talk by davening, that's the only thing you're allowed to scream at people. Let's say during Chazar Sashatz, you see a guy talking. So the Shulchan Aruch says you have to scream at them. You thought that was the only time you have to scream in shul. No, there are other occasions. Also, if a guy brings a phone into a shul, that's another thing to be goyer and by. But also, soifrim that allow kid to write tefillin and are not medakdek, whether they bring simane gadlos, you should yell at them as well. Obviously, yell at them in a very nice way, but yell at them nevertheless. Look what we wrote in the name of Levush earlier. Basically, the Levush says there's big punishment in store. V'ayim beber halacha lechinuch, even if they reach the age of chinuch. Be'emes afilu gadolai. It's not only if they reached the age of chinuch, even if they reach 13, kol zaman shlo yadinun shevi shtei saros, so long as you're not confident that they brought 2 hairs. Ach le'inyan gadol, but regarding a gadol, im achar kach bidaknu umatzanu sheis lo shtei saros. Let's say like this. The 13-year-old kid wrote Tefillin, and you didn't check if he had 2 hairs, and afterwards, you found out that he had 2 hairs. Talinon shahayaloi gamkein be'isak siva. We hinge it on the fact that they probably had 2 hairs at the time of the ksiva. So in other words, even though you might say, well, they were b'cheskas katan until you proved otherwise. So the fact that they had 2 hairs afterwards, maybe they didn't grow the 2 hairs before. So no, we could assume if they had 2 hairs after, that they had the 2 hairs before. Masha'in kain b'katan de'inoi moil as sa'arais. As opposed to a katan, it's not going to help if they have 2 hairs. So it was brought. Rabbi Yeager wrote that if a menuda or matzah is pater from tefillin, they can't write tefillin either. I think you could say, on the other hand, they could write tefillin, because if the reason why they're pater from tefillin is a sort of an external reason, they might be metameyed, or for whatever reason at that time they're exempt, but they're fundamentally chayiv in tefillin, because nobody would say that a guy who's distracted, who's not going to wear tefillin, can't write tefillin. He's be'etzem chayiv. L'chayra, a menuda mitzayra, perhaps you can make the case that they would be able to. Okay, sivkat and hey, oy kusi, kach tzarach laimar. That, meaning not a guy, but a kusi. The oived gilulim, belav hachi pasal. Because obviously an idolater is pasal, she'en kaisa lishma, because he doesn't write lishma. But even a kusi, who doesn't believe in it, would not be able to write tefillin. Okay, Rabbi, so we'll hold it over here. Okay, I don't have the upcoming schedule exactly yet, but tomorrow we're not on. Okay, tomorrow, even though we learned last Friday, no shiur tomorrow. We'll resume Monday. Possibly Monday and Tuesday are also very short pages. We might try to do 2 on those days. Likely Monday and Tuesday will be double headers like today. Okay. Have a good day, everyone. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.
Recording stopped.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.